Okay, so I did ask a question at the bottom left. Which maintenance tasks do you struggle doing the most? Looks like one person responded vendor packs. Somebody else was dimensions and weight updates. And then the others have not completed any maintenance tasks. So today we're going to be going over a lot of different maintenance tasks that you may need to do. Some of those will include the ones that are bulleted out here. So today is day 4. It's the final day of our webinar series, and we are covering maintenance in IMA. As you know, I'm recording it. I should be able to get these links out to you by end of day tomorrow. If you could please put yourself in Do Not Disturb status on all messaging apps and close all email applications. We are currently in listen-only mode. I will open that up to interactive talk mode at the end of the session for any final questions that you may have. So Monday we covered IMA basics and terminology. Tuesday was all about setting up new items using the new item grid. Yesterday we covered some different features that are available in IMA, and today we are covering maintenance. So the purpose of this session is to provide an overview of maintenance tasks that may need to be completed in IMA. So after completing this session, you will be able to demonstrate how to add a new carton and or vendor pack to an existing item, demonstrate how to update ship points and assign different ship points to different DC locations when needed, and identify the available options to update UPCs and dimensions and weights. So to meet those objectives, the topics that we will be covering include UPC changes, carton configurations changes, new cartons, new vendor packs, ship point changes, and dimensions and weights changes. So first we're going to talk about UPC changes. Sometimes you may find that your item is operational and it does not have the correct UPC on it. So how would you fix that? Well, it depends on what the buyer needs. So this is going to involve communication between you and your buying team. And if the buyer needs the same KSN, then inventory is actually going to have to strip that UPC and put the correct one back on. So that should be handled by inventory if the buyer requires the same KSN. Now if the buyer does not require the same KSN, then you would sync over a new carton with data sync. And then you would load that carton in your new item task list. There will be a few fields that you have to complete, but not as many as a completely new item because it's just a new carton. And then you would approve that. So again, it's going to require some communication with your buying team to determine which option is the one that they need you to do. So any questions about UPC changes? Okay, so next we're going to talk about carton configuration changes. So there are several reasons for updating carton configurations. It could be that the original setup is incorrect, or maybe that original setup is correct and they have been putting out orders, but they want additional assortment options. So they may want the ability to be able to order a 6-pack as well as a 10-pack. So the process to update the carton configuration depends on whether it's in process or operational. So if it's an in-process item and the original carton setup is incorrect, that can be corrected on the grid in the vendor role. So you would request, if you've already approved it through the vendor role, you would have to request the merchant or inventory analyst to return those items to you if they are not yet operational. And they are not displayed in the default view. So the default view when you go into the grid, you will not see the member quantity field. You have to actually find the tab that lives on, which is the Packages tab. So you would click the Packages tab, and then you could find the member quantity field. Now for operational items, carton configurations cannot be changed on existing items. So if you need to change the carton configuration for something that's operational, you're going to have to sync over a new carton with the correct configuration. That's why it's always good to double check that your carton I'm getting so tongue-tied today. If your carton configuration is correct before you approve it, because once it becomes operational, if you have to change it, it's going to take more time. You have to sync it over. You have to put it back through the setup process, so your items could be delayed. Okay, so today you will see that we are doing several demos. So give me a second to share my screen. Okay, so I actually have the grid ready for us to access. I'm going to pull that up. All right, so this is how you would update it for an in-process item or something that has been returned to you. Like I said, it's not going to be in this default view. You have to click the Packages tab up here on the left. So once you've done that, then you can see your member quantity right here. So if you need to make updates, you can just do that directly here. Right now it's a 6-pack of 222, but let's say it's supposed to be a pack of 323. There you can see the carton quantity automatically updated to correlate to those eaches. So are there any questions about updating carton configurations for in-process items or operational items? Oh, I see John's asked a question here. If the carton quantity stays the same, but the inner pack changes, do we still sync the new inner pack? That's a really good question. So let me go back. Let's see. Thinking about it for a second. I'm not sure that we can do a change request for that. I'm going to share my screen one more time, and we're going to go look at an operational item to see if a change request can be done for just the inner pack. That's a really good question. I haven't been asked that before. All right, so let's close out of here. Let me grab, let's see what that's. Okay. You have to give me a second to find a carton KSN. This is an each. Okay, so let's go to the Packages tab. Can't change it here, and let me check the Vendor Packs tab really quickly. No way to change it here either. I think you would actually, I'm going to double check on that. I'll talk to the help desk, and then I will send that question out to the group, the answer out to the group. But it's looking like you would have to sync over a new carton. Whenever I show you how to do, well, I'm going to be showing you how to do the manual part, but you can set your inners during the initial setup process. So you can do a different one that way. But I'm going to double check, but I think you would have to sync over a new carton. Okay, so that's a really good question. Like I said, I'll get back to you on the answer to that. Any other questions about the carton configuration? Okay, I do have a poll question for you on the right. How do you correct carton configurations on existing or operational items? I'll give you a few more seconds to answer that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and share the results. So about half of you got it right. To update the carton configuration on items that are already operational, you have to sync over a new carton. You can't just simply do a change request. That's why it's really important to double check that configuration before you approve it, because it will add time to the setup process. And until you get the carton configuration approved, the inventory needs, they won't be able to do orders for your item. All right, so next we're going to talk about new cartons. So there are several reasons for additional cartons. It could be that there's a change in that carton configuration, like we talked about previously. They've been ordering it as a 6-pack, but they also want to be able to order it as a 10-pack and have those different options. It could be that there's going to be a new vendor supplying that existing item, or maybe there's a promotional display. Just remember, whenever you do create a new carton, that new carton also needs a new vendor pack. The most common errors when adding a new carton includes that the UPCs don't match the correct quantity, carton dimensions do not align with each's, or vendor packs were not created for new exploding assortment members. So the process for adding new cartons depends on the type of carton that you want to add. If it's in each package, in each carton, uniform carton, or an exploding assortment carton, those should be synced over from your data sync provider. You shouldn't be creating these manually. Now, one of the definite pluses about syncing it over, if you sync over a new carton, that vendor pack is going to be synced over with it. Now, if you're building assorted, mixed, or pallet cartons, those cannot be data synced, and they have to be built manually in IMA. And because every carton requires a vendor pack, you would also have to manually build that vendor pack. So the data sync version is definitely much faster and more efficient, particularly if you have a lot of new cartons that you need to create. That being said, sometimes there may be an issue where you don't have the time, or maybe not the time, but you don't have the capability to sync over that new carton. Maybe your data sync provider is down, or the person who handles data sync from your company is on vacation, and you may need to add a new carton manually. So I am going to go over that process for you. And so let me share my screen one more time. We're going to go over adding a new uniform carton, as well as adding an exploding assortment carton. And these are for items that are already existing. All right, so first we're going to do the uniform carton. We're going to be adding a uniform carton to a specific KSN. So I'm doing a quick search for that KSN. You can see it's operational. I'm going to go to the Packages tab. And from here, you have this button available to add cartons. So we are adding a uniform carton, which is what's selected by default. So I'm going to click Add Package. All right, so the first thing I need to do is enter my G10. The division that this item has been built in is automatically selected. Next, you need to select your vendor information. You should just have a drop-down for the ones that you have been set up for with your ID. I'm having to search since I'm set up as a super user. So now our order done is selected. The SHC category is also already populated based upon where this item has been built. And then you just need to select the subcategory. Once you've entered that information, you can click Add Package. So now we can see that we have a uniform carton made under package type, is uniform carton. So we have to fill in all of the fields that have the red asterisk located next to it. So for description, you would just enter your description. So now you have to select the package that this uniform carton is for. In this case, there's only one option. So I'm going to select that and click Add. It refreshes. After the page refreshes, you can enter your quantity. So I'm going to do a uniform carton of 10. And this is where you can play with your inners and eaches per inner and total eaches. So first thing you want to do is enter your total number of inners. So if we're not actually going to have any inners and we're just placing all 10 of the jeans in a box, then each of those eaches actually count as an inner. So I'm going to enter 10. And when you click Save, those other two fields will update automatically. So it's 10, 1, 10. Let's say we are going to have inners. We're going to have 2 inners in this uniform carton. So if I update that to 2 and I click Save, now you can see that it updated the eaches per inner. So there are 2 inners and there's 5 jeans in each of the inners for a total of 10. Now make sure that you do enter information that is properly divisible into the total eaches. If I were to enter 3, it would come up with a number, but 3 times 3 is 9. It doesn't equal 10. So if I were to go to the Workflow tab and try to approve this, I would get a hard error, and this would have to be resolved before it could be approved. So I'm going to update this back to 10. Okay. So next you have to enter your dimensions and weights. So just remember that these need to properly coordinate with your eaches. If your cube sum value is greater than what the cube sum value is for the carton, then you're going to run into an error. Once you complete this information, you can click the Workflow tab, and we're going to check for errors. And I should get a couple of errors. So here, you can see 2 errors. First one is that a vendor pack must be created for this package. Like I said, anytime there's a new carton, it requires a vendor pack. The second one, you'll see I forgot to enter one of the dimensions or the weights. It says that it's empty. So where would we go to fix this? I mean, this is kind of obvious since we were only working on the package tab. But if you don't know where your errors are located, you can look at the field section up here at the top. It says uniform carton. So we know that these specific errors apply to the uniform carton within this KSN. So again, we can go back to our packages tab. Now you can see there's an each, and there's this new carton. This is the uniform carton. So we're going to click into that G10, and you can see my weight is empty. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that. So now I would just need to go create that new vendor pack. I'm not going to create it yet because we're going to have a few slides on vendor packs. Then we're going to come back in and show you how to create vendor packs manually. So that's all you have to do for your uniform carton for the package tab. So next I wanted to show you how to create a new exploding assortment when the eaches are already existing. So to create a new exploding assortment, you hover over Create, and you can click Exploding Assortment. It's going to come up with this page here, and again, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to enter that G10. Next, you have to select the division. So I'm going to scroll down here and select that. You then have to enter your vendor information. Again, you should have a drop down for that. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me grab a different done. Okay, we'll go with this one. Okay. Then you also have to select the category. Oh, I see. I selected the wrong division. That's probably why my DUNS isn't working. Sorry about that. 1 second. There we go. Okay, so now I can select my category and then my subcategory. Once you've completed all of this information, you would click Add Package. All right, so now it's asking you to confirm whether you want to create a carton or a pallet. So we are doing an exploding assortment, so I'm going to leave carton selected, and I'm going to click Create Package. And then we have to enter a description. You don't need to enter the brand. It's not really required for a carton. You do have to answer the EAS tag questions. So we're going to say no. And then we're going to click Save. So now you are looking at the exploding assortment package. So our description's already been entered, but we are missing the eaches that go into this exploding assortment. So next you would click Search for Assortment Members. And there's different criteria that you can use to search for. I am going to be entering in my KSNs individually just because the search results come back faster for the webinar. But one of the ways that you might want to search would be with that vendor stock number, because you usually group items with that vendor stock number. And then you could select all 3 or however many are in your carton at the same time. And that's my last each. So now you can see all of my eaches in this carton. Next thing we want to do is we want to update the quantity. So this is going to be carton of 333. And then we need to update our dimensions and weights. And then click Save. So I do want to show you, if you do complete some information and then you try to click onto a different tab without saving, you get this message. And normally, in most of the applications that you work in, like Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, when you go to Exit, it asks you if you want to save. So you click Yes, because that's what you do by default, because that's how most applications function. This is kind of backwards, which is why I like to point it out to you. This one's saying you made changes to the form. Do you want to continue without saving? So if you were to click that OK by default, you would actually lose all of the information that you just entered. So you actually have to click Cancel and then Save. Now from there, we can click the Workflow tab, and you should just see the error for the missing vendor pack. Yep, so this is just saying that we're missing a vendor pack for this carton. So we're going to come back to this. So again, you should be syncing those new cartons and new vendor packs over, but there may be an instance where you need to do it manually. So we walked through the process, and you're going to get the video link. I don't expect you to just suddenly remember all of this. So you can come back to that video and review those steps. And that will probably help you in those instances because, like I said, it's not something that you're going to do a lot, so I don't expect you to just remember it. Kind of unrealistic. So you do have the example available that you'll be able to refer to with the video. So any questions about adding new cartons? All right, I do have a couple questions for you. So over on the right side, which of the below new cartons should be synced from your data sync provider? And select all that apply. Just a few more seconds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end this. All right, so looks like some of you got it right. The ones that should be synced over from your data sync provider, when you can do that, is in each carton, uniform cartons, and exploding assortment cartons. So there were 3 that should have been selected. Each cartons, uniform cartons, and exploding assortment cartons. I know it might have been a little confusing because I did just walk through how to do uniforms and exploding assortments manually. But typically, if you have data sync set up, your person's there and they can sync that information, those should be synced over. All right, let's look at the next question. So which of the below new cartons have to be built manually? Like, you don't have the option to sync these over. They absolutely have to be built manually. That's the only way to do it. Just a few more seconds. Okay, so the answer to this one, there's 2 of them that should have been selected. Should have been mixed and assorted cartons. Mixed and assorted cartons. So these are the ones that absolutely have to be built manually. You don't have the option to sync them. Exploding assortments should be synced when possible. So you can build them manually. We walked through how to do that, but they should be synced when possible. Okay, we're going to move on to new vendor packs. So my merchant or inventory analyst has requested that I create a new vendor pack for an existing item. Why would I need to create a new vendor pack? So we're going to do something a little bit different with this one. So this is called a whiteboard, and you guys are able to actually write on this. So over on the left side of your screen, you can select the T for the text tool, and you can click anywhere on the screen, and you can start typing. And you can tell me what you think would be reasons that you may be requested to add a new vendor pack. You can just give a couple of answers. You don't have to list off. There's 5 or 6 of them total, and you don't have to list all of them. We talked about this on Monday, so I'm wanting to see what you guys remembered. So we'll wait another minute or so. So again, you can use that text tool on the left side of your screen. It looks like a T. Once you click that, you can just click anywhere on the screen and start typing. Okay, is anyone else still working on it? I only see um, one response through so far. Getting ready to move on. I just don't want to cut anybody off. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. Um, so the one response that we got was add to .com. So this is definitely possible. It would probably fall under, let me bring up the list for you, and it would fall under one of these on the list. So it would probably fall under new flow type, maybe the additional store format, because it's most likely if it's being shipped online, it's going to require a different flow type to get to the customer, or they might have an online store format that's not the, well, I think it would still be the FLS or Kmart, but they might have something specific for online as well. So it's possible. But these are the main reasons why you would have additional vendor packs. It could be new flow type. So again, if you've been having your items shipped DC, and then your inventory or merchant team decides they want to start ordering it through DSD, which is direct to store, you would need a new flow type for that, or sorry, a new vendor pack for that flow type. Also, Sears and Kmart, if your product's being sold in one and we want to start selling it in the other, we would need a new vendor pack for that store format. If it's a different vendor, so vendor A has been supplying the item, they're going to stop supplying it, and vendor B is going to start supplying that same item. Or if we have to get our supply from multiple vendors at the same time for a single product, each of those vendors would have to have their own vendor pack. If you have a change in carton configuration and or a new each/member, that would need a new vendor pack. Anytime you have a new cartons, you need new vendor packs. And finally, if you have more than one cost. So if we've been selling your item in the 48 states and we want to start selling it in Alaska or Hawaii or Puerto Rico, those are going to require a higher cost. So we would need a new vendor pack for that. So the most common errors when adding a new vendor pack would be that the desired ship point is not available to select. It's not in that drop-down. Could be that the DUNS number is not set up for the correct format. So maybe your DUNS number has not been set up for Sears because you've only ever had your product in Kmart so far. Or it could be that the DUNS number is not set up for the correct flow. So if you've only ever sent your items through the DC flow, it may not be set up for the DSD flow. So in both of those instances, the last two, your merchant or inventory would probably have to put in a request for you to go back through onboarding to get that additional information added to your DUNS. So the process depends, again, on whether you use data sync or you set items up manually. So if you use data sync, you should be syncing those over with the existing UPC. Now, if you need a new vendor pack because you are building a new carton, then when you sync that new carton over, that new vendor pack is going to come over along with it. If you set items up manually, you will have to add or duplicate a vendor pack from the vendor pack tab in IMA. And we do have another demo to walk through both of those processes. Okay, so with this one, this is the exploding assortment carton that we created. We have not yet added that vendor pack, so we have to add a vendor pack to it. So we're going to click this vendor pack tab, and you'll see there aren't any vendor packs listed. So we're going to click the Add Vendor Pack button. All right, so under Shipping Package, you're going to select the carton that this vendor pack is for. And then next you have to enter your vendor information. So once you've entered that, the page refreshes, and now you have the option to select your flow type and your primary store format. So we're going to select DSD for this vendor pack. And under primary store formats, we will select Kmart. So next, we have to enter our vendor pack cost. So remember that this cost is the cost of all of the eaches in that vendor pack. So it's not going to equal the cost of a single each. So if there are, I think there were 9 in here, so this is the cost of 9 of those eaches that are in here. After that, you can enter your vendor stock number. You can update the vendor description if you'd like to. And then you enter your order quantity multiple and your unit of measure, which is a carton. Over on the right, you're going to select your projected first in-store date. So you can get this from your merchant, but it's basically when they expect this to arrive at the store. So if you scroll down, I want to point out you don't see any of these ship points. Because this is DSD and it's not DC, there are no ship points to select. It's one of the reasons I wanted to show you a DSD setup. So we're going to click Save. And then we are going to go to the Workflow tab. We're going to check for errors. So this is just a warning, and warnings can always be ignored. You do not have to resolve warnings. So I'm going to select Approve, and then I'm going to click Submit and Ignore Warnings. So that's one method of adding a vendor pack. It's where you use the Add Vendor Pack button. So another possibility that you could do, not particularly for this one, but for other instances, is duplicating a vendor pack. So there wasn't anything on that vendor pack page to duplicate. That's why we had to build it manually. It was a brand new exploding assortment. But this one, we just want to duplicate and add a vendor pack to an existing item. So we're going to go to the vendor pack tab. So you can see there's already a vendor pack on this item. I'm going to click into the vendor pack number hyperlink here on the left, and that's going to open the individual page for that vendor pack. So on the top right side, I'm going to click Duplicate Vendor Pack. So it's going to load with this page here. So the very first drop-down, you see it's asking about the store format. I'm going to select Kmart. And then next, we have to enter our vendor information. After that, we're going to select our flow type. So this time I'm going to select DC so you can see ship points. Then we select our primary store format. And then finally, we are selecting our package. Then you can click Create Duplicates. Now, if you need to create multiple additional vendor packs for the same item, maybe you've been shipping your item DC for Kmart stores, and now we would like the ability to do DSD through Kmart, as well as DC through Sears. You could do all that here. So you could just start on the next line, and then you could choose your Sears, and you could start setting up that Sears DC vendor pack. So you can add as many lines as you need to. So we're just going to do the one. So I'm going to click Create Duplicates. And so it loaded this into what we call multi-edit. We know it's multi-edit because we have these tabs up here with sub-tabs underneath them. So we still need to complete some information on that vendor pack. So we're going to go into the vendor pack by clicking the vendor pack number hyperlink. So you can see most of this information is complete. Shipping package is selected, your tons, the flow type that we had selected is there, as well as the primary store format. We have a projected first in-store date, stock number. So it copied a lot of information over. There are a couple of things that you still need to do. First off, this in-store date is really old. The in-store date can be no older than 3 months in the past. Otherwise, you're going to get a hard error. So we are going to update this. And then you also have to answer the Prop 65 questions. This is in each, and the eaches require the Prop 65 questions. You don't usually see that on cartons. That's why we didn't see it on the previous one we did. So I'm going to select no and no. And now, if you scroll down, you can see your DC locations and your ship points. So there's no ship points selected. Now, you can select these individually, or you can also select your ship point up here. And, whoops, reset it. There we go. And then you can click Apply to All, and you can click OK. And now, if you scroll down, you will see that that ship point has been applied to all of the DC locations. So once you've done that, you can click Save. And then you can go to the workflow and approve. Okay, so back to the PowerPoint. So are there any questions about adding vendor packs? Okay, I do have a question over on the right. True or false? Vendor packs should always be built manually. Just a few more seconds. And you all got it right. Great job. So vendor packs should not always be built manually. It depends on how you build your items. If you always build your items manually, then yes, you should do them manually. If you use DataSync, you should be using DataSync. But again, there are instances where you may still need to go in and do it manually. All right, so next we're going to talk about ship points. So there are a few reasons for ship point changes. It could be that your shipping location has closed. If we've been coming to your Pennsylvania warehouse to pick up an item, you may have closed that, and if we show up there, there's not going to be anything to pick up. Or it could be that you want to adjust the route for a better deal. Maybe you have a warehouse in Pennsylvania and you have a warehouse in California, and you'd like for us to pick up from your warehouse in Pennsylvania for our East Coast DC locations. And then you'd like for us to pick up from your California warehouse for our West Coast DC locations. So that's another reason you might want to update your ship points. The different ship points for different DCs. The most common errors when changing a ship point could be that you select the incorrect ship point, or that the desired ship point is not available. So if you select the incorrect ship point, we're going to show up to pick up your product, and you're not going to have it because you sent us to the wrong location. That's why it's important that you make sure you select the correct one. If your ship point isn't available, then you're going to need to submit a request through the vendor portal to have that ship point added. So to add a request, you can go to the IMA tab of the IMA portal, IMA tab of the vendor portal, and then down further on the page under ship point changes, you would click here. And it's going to load this form. and you can just complete all of the information on the form and click Submit, and they will contact you once that ship point has been added. Note that it's not going to happen instantaneously. It will take usually a couple of business days. So I'm going to move really quickly through this part actually, because I'm going to do a demo for this. But you do have these slides with the breakdown of how to change for you to refer to. But we're going to go straight to the demo to make sure that we don't run out of time. So give me just a second to share my screen again. Okay. So to update ship points on operational items, you would want to do a quick search for your item, and then click your vendor pack tab. From here, you're going to click into the vendor pack number hyperlink of the vendor pack that you want to update the ship points for. And as a reminder, if you need to do different ship points for different DC locations, this is the process that you would actually have to use, because when you do the initial setup of your items, you can only select a single ship point to be applied to all of the DC locations. So you would have to go ahead and set it up with just a single ship point, and then once it's operational, you'd have to come in here and do this change request to put different ship points for different DC locations. So once you're on the vendor pack page, you can scroll down to the bottom, and you're going to select this box next to Change DC Locations. Once you've selected that box, you're going to click Create Change Request. Now from here, if you're just changing from one ship point to another, and it's going to be applied to all of the DCs, you could just select it there and click Apply to All, and then click OK. But let's say we want to do different ship points for different DCs. The first thing you'd have to do is you'd have to click this plus sign next to the tier group to explode that out. So here we can see the current ship points, and then here's the drop down is where we select the new ship points. So I can select Carson for one, and I can select Bayonne for the other one. So now items that are going to our California DC are going to be coming from your Carson location, and items going to our Pennsylvania DC will be coming from your Bayonne location. Once you've entered that information, you can click Save and go to Next. And then you would simply check for errors. There's just a warning. Warnings can always be ignored. So then you would just click Approve, and then click Submit Ignore Warnings. So any questions about updating ship points? All right, so got another question for you. True or false? If you need to set up different ship points for different DCs, you have to initially set up only one ship point and then create a change request after the item is operational. A couple more seconds. Okay, those of you that answered did get it correct. That is true. Great job on that. All right, finally, we are going to talk quickly, whoops, wrong way out, there we go. We're going to talk about dimensions and weights and updating those. So there are a few reasons why we might need to update dimensions and weights. It could be that the items are so old they're wrong. Maybe the items have been around for a really long time, and when they were initially set up, those dimensions and weights were correct. But maybe that product has changed over time and they have different dimensions now, or different weights. So in that instance, they'd be so old that they're wrong. Or maybe they were put in wrong to begin with, and our system didn't catch it because the dimensions and weights rules that we have weren't in place till maybe about 5 or so years ago. So another reason could be that you added a new carton with the correct dimensions and weights, but the eachers are now wrong because they were incorrect to begin with. So that's kind of what I was saying. They were incorrect to begin with. Maybe our system didn't catch it because we didn't have those rules in place, or the product was different at the time. So if you add a new carton and you can't get the dimensions and weights to line up, you're going to need to do a change request for those eaches so that your carton can be correct. The most common errors when changing dimensions and weights is, this is with anything really, creating the change but forgetting to approve it, and then calculating the cube incorrectly. So we did do a short math problem on Monday where you guys had to calculate the minimum cube sum value. So again, the cube sum is going to be depth times width times height, multiplied by however many of those eaches are in your carton. And then that's the minimum cube sum value that your carton is required to be. So the process to change the dimensions and weights depends on the type of package or carton that you're trying to update it for, and if you use data sync. So each packages, each cartons, uniform cartons, and exploding assortment cartons. Those should be synced over from your data sync provider. So you can sync over those new dimensions and weights from your provider. If you're doing assorted cartons, mixed cartons, and pallet cartons, those cannot be synced over, and so you would have to update those manually within IMA. We did also on Monday, we talked about the exception indicator. If exemption rules apply, you could update that on operational items by simply clicking on the Changes tab for a single item, or using the Changes grid to do multiple items at a time. So again, that dimension exception indicator, you don't just go and set it to yes just because you couldn't resolve the dimensions of your eaches with your carton. So don't just use it as an easy out. That's not what it's for. It is for circumstances such as having maybe pillows where items are getting compressed together, or if you have something that can be nested in each other, like chairs, or maybe hats, those can be nested within themselves. So those are instances where you would use the dimension exception indicator. So to do that, for a single edit, you can go to your Packages tab after you did a quick search, and then you would select this box for your package. Select the box next to the dimension exception indicator for the package. Then you're going to click Create Change Request. So from here, you can select the flag, and then you would choose Save and go to Next. So if you need to update your dimensions manually, it would be the same process. So you could select any of these boxes, because these boxes are all grouped together. So once you've selected one of them and you click Create Change Request and you see this page, see these are your depth, width, and height, and this is your weight. So you can update those manually on a single item by following this process. Once you hit Save and go to Next, your Workflow tab will load, and then you would have to approve it. Now, you cannot update the dimensions and the weights through your Changes grid. What you can update is the dimension exception indicator. So to update that dimension exception indicator in the Changes grid, you would simply select that field up here, enter your criteria, and then click Create Grid. You would enter a grid name, click Save, and then you would have to scroll to the right because it brings all those dimensions fields to that screen, even though you can see that these are not editable. You'd have to scroll to the right to find the dimension exception indicator field, change that flag, and click Approve. So any questions about updating dimensions and weights or the dimension exception indicator? I do have one final question for you. True or false, if you cannot resolve dimension errors, you should just change the dimension exception indicator to yes. We'll wait just a few more seconds. All right, those of you that answered did get it correct. That is false. All right, so just some quick closing comments to summarize what we've learned today. If a carton configuration is incorrect, you must create a new carton with the correct configuration. A new carton always requires a new vendor pack. But a new vendor pack does not necessarily require a new carton. It is best practice to sync over new cartons and vendor packs rather than creating them manually, although sometimes it is required. Before fixing an incorrect UPC, communicate with your buyer to determine whether the same KSN is required. And you must wait until an item is operational before you can select different ship points for different DCs. So I will be sending out a survey link later today. And if you could take the time to complete that, I would really appreciate it. It gives me some good feedback, especially since this is a new webinar application that we are using. I know we ran into a few kinks, so hopefully as they get more comfortable using it, those will get worked out. But again, I would love to hear your feedback. So I'll be sending out a link later today. By end of day tomorrow, I should have the links for the videos sent out to you. Then you can review those at any time that you would like. So if you have any questions at all, I'm going to stay on the line. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Otherwise, I hope that you found this useful and